Hi, my name is Caitlin Tighe. I'm a senior at Hamlin University in my last semester, and I am majoring in legal studies with a paralegal certificate. And for my communications project, I will be focusing on the expectancy violations theory, which is chapter 7 of our textbook. So just to start, I really enjoyed this theory after reading about it and used it as a theory in the paper we did beforehand. So I figured why not dive more in depth. So just for some background on the theory of expectancy violations theory, or EVT for short, expectancy violation theory was developed by Judy Burgoon, who was a communication scholar at the University of Arizona. EVT is defined as a theory of communication that analyzes how individuals respond to unanticipated violations of social norms and expectations. Judy started the theory in the late 1970s and continued through the 1980s and 1990s as nonverbal expectancy violation theory based on Burgoon's research studying proximacies. Proximacies are described as the study of people, use of space as a special elaboration of culture. Burgoon's work initially analyzed individuals' allowance and expectations of personal distance and how responses to personal violations were influenced by the level of liking and relationship to the violators. This theory was later changed to its current name when the researchers began to focus on violations of social behavior expectations beyond nonverbal communication. So the theory begins by discussing personal space, and personal space is defined as the invisible variable volume of space surrounding an individual that defines the individual's preferred distance from others. However, this idea of personal space was not developed by Judy. An anthropologist named Edward Hall actually coined the term proximacies in order to describe people's expectations of space in regard to others. Edward Hall claimed that Americans have four distances: intimate distance, which is 0 to 18 inches, personal distance, which is 18 inches to 4 feet, social distance, which is 4 to 12 feet, and public distance, which is 12 to 25 feet. So I just added some diagrams to try and display what those numbers look like. I added in the one on the left because it helped me remind myself that this is about people. And even though there's stick figures, it just helped me. And then it also gave like examples of like, oh, this is your friends, your family, acquaintances, and like complete strangers. And it helped show where they would be on this. But I felt like that one didn't do a great job of like really identifying how much space was in between. I felt the circles did that a little bit better because it truly shows like how far away these people would be from the center, which is you or anyone else. And yeah, so I thought those helped, and I hope that they help you a little. So now I'm going to go over the three main concepts of EVT. So expectancy violation theory has three main concepts that are expectancy, violation balance, and communicator reward balance. Expectancy is what people predict will happen rather than what they desire. Violation balance is the perceived positive or negative value assigned to a breach of expectations, regardless of who the violator is. And communicator reward balance is the sum of positive and negative attributes brought to an encounter, plus the potential reward or punishment in the future. So just to further this idea of EVT, I'm going to discuss the interactive adaptation theory, or IAT. So Judy Burgoon realized that EVT did not cover enough in relation to interaction. So Judy and her students, Lisa Stern and Lisi Dillman, I hope I'm pronouncing those somewhat right, created IAT. They defined interactive adaptation theory as a systematic analysis of how people adjusted their approach when another's behavior did not align with what's anticipated, needed, or preferred. IAT is an extension and expansion of EVT. So that's important to keep in mind of like why I'm just randomly talking about another theory. But this theory was developed in order to help expand on EVT. And interaction position is used to further explain IAT. Interaction position has three main facets: requirements, expectations, and desires. These three factors are known as RED. They are implemented in a person's initial stance towards an interaction as determined by a blend of the three. So now I'm going to try and further break down red for you. So starting with R, or requirements, those are the outcomes that fulfill our basic needs to survive, be safe, and have a sense of self-worth. E, or expectations, are what we think will really happen, and D, or desires, are what we personally would like to see happen. An example of this that I sort of just came up with is college. So for me, as I mentioned previously, I'm a legal studies major, and in order to do that, I was required, so R, to take certain classes as well as maintain good grades. And then with that, it was my expectation, or E, that my professors would teach me what I needed to know in order to get good grades and teach me about different aspects of the law. And then after both my requirements and expectations were met, it became a desire, or D, of mine to go to law school. And as I felt my professors laid the groundwork for me to get there. And another example I kind of just stumbled upon when I was looking for pictures to add to this presentation was Kanye West and Taylor Swift. So I'm sure you probably know briefly about it, but at some awards show, was like an MTV one or something, when Taylor got an award, she was required to go give a speech, and she expected that no one would interrupt her. But when that expectation was broken by Kanye West going up and ripping the mic from her, her desire was to, either leave the stage or have Kanye West get off the stage so she could continue her speech. So I thought that was just kind of a fun one to add in as well. And now I'm just going to talk about some failure to success. So Judy's initial experiments did not go well in predicting behaviors. However, she was not willing to give up on it. She stood strong that the theory had value, but contended that some of the basic assumptions might need to be tested and reevaluated. Judy and her students continued on with the experiments and studies until they developed the theory we know today. But EVT has gotten a lot of criticism for its attempt to provide an umbrella for certain aspects of interpersonal communication. Some critics of EVT believe most interactions between individuals are extremely complex and that there are many contingencies to consider within the theory. This makes the prediction on behavioral outcomes of a particular situation virtually impossible to consistently predict, as we saw in the example of the book where the professor and his students, how it was 3 for 1, I believe, 3 wrong, 1 correct. But another critique of the theory is the assumption of expectancy violations are mostly highly consequential acts, negative in nature, and cause uncertainty to increase between communicators. So that was a big one. And then now, just to finish up, overall, expectancy violation is a communication theory which tries to explain the unexpected behaviors of human beings while interacting. The expectancy violation theory can be applied in the study of various interpersonal relationships. The use of EVT in other settings shows that it is a valuable theory to further our understanding. And the theory also meets 5 of the criteria of a good scientific theory. It advances reasonable explanations. It is relatively simple. It has a testable hypothesis, and Judy adjusted her quantitative research when needed, and it offered a practical advice that could be used. Thus, EVT is a very helpful tool when looking not only at communication studies, but also interactions as a whole. Thank you for listening.